Farming food and fashion for a discerning world is serious business in Aotearoa, New Zealand. There are new opportunities everywhere just waiting for the open-minded. Sarah's Country shines a light on the matters that matter most. And here's your host, Sarah Perriam.
Kia ora and welcome to Sarah's Country, where we take farming, food and fashion for a discerning world very seriously. Now, what gets me jumping out of bed to go to work in New Zealand's most important industry, the primary industry, is that in my day-to-day life, I get the privilege to uncover so many opportunities everywhere that are just waiting for all of the open-minded to grasp and run with. But simply, a lot of people don't know about them, and that's where I come in to be able to share and connect. And that's why I'm very excited to present our new Changemaker show, where every Wednesday, dedicating a whole hour every week to the latest innovations, ideas and solutions that support the way we farm and grow for a better future. Now, if you are an internal optimist like myself, wanting to keep up with the latest scientific research or the cool new tools to help achieve our goals on farm and beyond, then this show is for you. Many of these interviews on the Changemaker series are ones that will have been featured in Farmers Weekly, which has a wonderful feature dedicated to this in the paper every weekend online under the title New Thinking. And a link to all of the articles of anything that we discuss in the Changemaker series. We will put a link to more information to be found in the description wherever you are listening to these interviews on podcast. We couldn't produce, of course, this multi-platform, multi-dimensional, and as I'd like to call it, innovative show, Sarah's Country, without the amazing team at Farmers Weekly, who unearthed the gems that are, of course, very new thinking. If you have ever need to get in touch with any of the guests that I have featured on Sarah's Country, for any reason, it may be research or a connection, please do not hesitate to email me, sarah@sarahscountry.com, and I will ask them if I can forward on your details, as I do feel that I was put on this earth to simply just connect knowledge and power to make cool stuff happen. Because you know what? We can need to progress together. And if we do, it'll be faster as a team. So why not? And if you have a super cool changemaker type story of a person or an organization that's doing great things to help us achieve, that lofty goal or vision that we can be an agricultural nation that's world leading with its approach to balanced business that's sensitive to the well-being of people, profit, and the environment, then it means please do get in touch and we can share this through this awesome new series on a Wednesday. If you're new to Sarah's Country in 2021, go you for joining the podcast that it feels like everyone is talking about at the moment. Well, especially giving me a lot of great feedback, and it's certainly showing up in the numbers, going into the tens of thousands of individual listeners tuning in from around the world. And they are from people that live and breathe the industry. And it seems like Sarah's Country is that place they're turning to for a source of in-depth knowledge in a visual and audio format, building off the wonderful journalism of Farmers Weekly. This is the industry that produces the finest food, beverage, health and beauty and fashion products in the world. Now, if you're working in this field, I want you to be damn proud of how cool and sexy it is, because I do. Now, to kick off the very first Changemaker show, we are discussing everything from an online tool to record efforts on how we are improving freshwater quality, a program to produce future-ready farms, a dairy farmer who built a software to monitor on-farm performance that everyone is now benefiting from, right down to a psychologist who insists that there are downsides to robots taking over farmers' innate ability to produce food with nature. First up, Roger Young from Cawthron Freshwater Sciences is going to join us and says that one of the goals of their free online freshwater register is to give people all over New Zealand a greater awareness of the efforts that are already underway to improve freshwater and a clearer picture of what has been achieved so far.
This is Sarah's Country, produced in alliance with Farmers Weekly, the place New Zealand farmers turn to for a trusted source of in-depth agricultural journalism. Stay connected to the matters that matter most by subscribing to My Daily Digest at farmersweekly.co.nz.
The recipe for perfect beef and lamb. Take one small fresh country. Make sure it's nice and remote. Now, keep it at the ideal temperature all year round. Next, mix in the farmers. They go perfectly with the nature of this unique place. Add regular sprinkles of rain to really bring out the lush meadow grass. Then let your animals happily graze on this grass all day, every day. And there you have it, New Zealand, the perfect recipe for beef and lamb. Taste pure nature.
So our Land and Water National Science Challenge is 1 year into a 3-year project to create a free online tool. And this will record efforts to improve water quality within rural catchments, but of course also highlight the good work that is currently underway. The tool is ultimately developed to improve the ability to link the actions on land with the changes in water quality at the monitoring sites. And Roger Young from Cawthron Freshwater Science Group Manager joins us now. Thank you so much for taking the time, Roger. I was very excited to delve into this because, of course, it's not only about what we can do, but what we have already achieved, and sometimes providing that in a visual way makes people's anxieties and their knowledge base a lot stronger. Can you give me a wee bit of background of how you personally come to be involved with this project?
Yeah, hi Sarah. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm a freshwater scientist, and so I've been doing a lot of work on water quality monitoring around New Zealand and things. So it's seeing patterns of water quality. Some places are not so good, and some places are still pretty awesome. But we've got some places going backwards. So it's nice to be involved in a project where we are really recognising the good work. We know there's a lot of people doing good work out there to try and improve the state of our waterways. So it's really important to recognise that work, and then also if we can record what is going on, what's being done, where it's being done, and how much is being done, we can actually learn what actions are most effective in terms of improving the situation.
Freshwater in New Zealand is one of the most emotive issues that every single New Zealander feels personally attached to and has done over the last couple of years. But do you believe that it is simple enough to transform what is a very complicated science into a sort of layman's way of understanding it?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm myself, and used to play down by the river and that sort of thing. So that's what really got me into. I probably should have been helping out in the shearing shed, but I ended up fishing and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I think it's it's not a problem that any one person can solve. It's something that the whole community has to work on, and a lot of the issues have been building up for hundreds of years, really. So it's not something we're going to fix overnight. But everybody can make a contribution and think about their activities, what they're doing, and how they can improve the situation.
Yeah, I know our listeners and viewers would be really interested to know about how this tool works.
Yeah, so we're aiming to get information on exactly what people are doing. There's a range of things, obviously, that people can do to help minimise the effects of land management on rivers. So whether that's planting, keeping stock out of waterways, or planting riparian margins, or protecting wetlands, or farm plans, managing fertiliser and irrigation, all those sorts of things. So we're trying to get information on that from people. We're largely working with sector groups like the dairy companies and that sort of thing. They're collecting that type of information from their suppliers already, so we're trying to access that information so people don't have to supply it more than once, and then we'll be reporting that back at a catchment scale, won't be reporting at a property scale. We don't want to see this as a compliance tool that people will be using to hit them with a stick. It's an information tool so people can see where their activities fit in with the wider catchment, and how they compare with other catchments, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone listening is involved in their local catchment and wants to be able to effectively help plug into this, what's the best way to go about that?
We're just building the register at the moment and thinking around how we're going to get information into it and also get information out to the people. So the reporting part of it is going to be through the LAWA website, Land, Air, Water, Aotearoa, which currently hosts a whole lot of environmental information. So this will be a new module in LAWA reporting on who's doing what where to improve the situation, and it'll be sitting beside other information on water quality and river health and things. So in terms of the input data, as I mentioned, we're expecting to get most of the information directly from sector organisations and dairy companies and regional councils, those sorts of things. But we're going to set it up so individuals could potentially, or community groups especially, could be entering the data. We're still just working out the logistics of how to do that and have manageable costs around all that sort of thing. So wrong stuff coming in.
Now, you obviously are the group manager, and there must be a bigger team than just yourself that are involved with this. What's it like being a freshwater scientist and then actually putting your head into sort of data integration? It's kind of a different world.
Yeah. It's something I've been doing for a while, and it's certainly much a bigger team than just me involved with this, and more than just Cawthron as well. We've got 3 other organisations involved in the project with bringing in different skills in terms of mātauranga Māori and data, the whole data management and web design and all that sort of thing side of it. So I'm just a mere freshwater scientist.
Yeah, but at the same time, the picture is only as good as the data that is inputted into it. What are some of the challenges you've unearthed so far in the first year of being able to get all of the different types of organisations that are collecting data to be able to plug in and simply for it to talk easily to each other?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge, and one of the challenges is there isn't a whole lot of data collection going on. Certainly some sectors are well advanced in that, but others think it's a good idea, and so we'll be encouraging, hopefully it is a bit of a build it and they will come kind of situation. Some of this information will be collected by different agencies at different scales, and that's going to be a challenge for us to put that in together. We're seeing this as a national picture, but also being relevant right down to a sub-catchment scale.
Yeah, and of course the quality of that data and how it's collected as well. Is there, as a freshwater scientist, like the be-all and end-all of technology for monitoring water quality that sort of catchment groups might want to start to think of investing in collectively or start to work towards, that are really great tools? I understand there's a lot here in Lincoln and Canterbury in terms of hyperspectral and different things going on as well. Is there something that people should be starting to think about working towards?
It's an area of interest of mine, is thinking about river health rather than just water quality. So I think that's what we all really want, are healthy waterways, not just sort of clear water. I guess swimming pools have nice clear water, but there's not much life in them. So there's a variety of indicators. We use things, water quality indicators like nutrient concentrations and sediment and water clarity, those sorts of things, fecal bacteria. But then in terms of the biology of the system, we often look at the composition of the invertebrates, or the little animals that live in amongst the stones on the river bottom. That can tell you a lot about the health of the system. And then obviously a lot of people are passionate about the fish living in the system. They're sort of the larger organisms, and obviously from a Māori perspective and a lot of people's perspective, it's fish are what draw people to waterways as well. So thinking around the species that you'd expect to be there, do you find them there, and are they healthy and growing fast, and those sorts of things.
Absolutely, it is a bigger picture, and certainly guests in the past on Serious Country have started to change that conversation to be more about that. So when it comes down to what it may look like in 3 years' time, say for instance I'm live in Ponsonby and have a passionate interest in following the water quality of my favourite waterway, will I be able to log on and visually see a red, orange, green type dashboard? Is that kind of where it's going to?
Yep. So on Lawa at the moment, you can see your favourite water body wherever you want to go, and you can look at New Zealand as a whole and see what's being monitored where and what the average sort of picture is, and then you can zoom right down into individual river, and potentially where there's more than one site on the river, you can go to one particular site and see the water quality last week, the last sample, and how it fits in. In terms of the register of actions, you'll be able to see alongside of that, you'll be able to see, well, actually, the upstream catchment, 40% of it is fenced. There's stock excluded from 40% of the catchment upstream, so that's a good start, but there's more work to be done. You might see that there's 3 major wetlands in that catchment, and they've all been fenced, and 80% of the landowners have an active farm environmental plan. That's the sort of information that we're hoping to be able to show, so you can see the level of activity of people in catchments.
So therefore the motivation to landowners is really input data into as much places as you can that is relative, and then not see it as a compliance thing, actually see this as an educational tool that can help the general patriotism towards farming.
That's right. I mean, there's quite a bit of talk about social license of farming and that sort of thing, and the urban-rural divide and these sorts of things, but I think it's important that there is a lot of activity going on, and I think this is a way of landowners telling their story about the good work that's going on and the efforts being made, and I think that's being undervalued at the moment.
Thank you so much, Group Manager for Cawthron and the Freshwater Group, and the work that's going on with a free online tool. And you can learn more about that if you look in the description below, if you're listening on podcast, as well as find more information at farmersweekly.co.nz. And I'm sure you will also be able to find it on the Our Land and Water National Challenge website as well. Now, after the break, we are going to kick on farm reporting in the guts with my mate Trev. Trev is trusty, independent and reliable, an all-round good bugger and a bit of a legend. Trev is also a computer software that will help you automate the flow of livestock data from operational into financial reporting. Scott Townshend, Trev CEO and formerly overseeing 14,000 cow dairy farm operation, will join us to introduce you to this guy you should know called Trev.
This is Sarah's Country. Catch the latest on the matters that matter most wherever you are. Listen to Sarah's Country on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple or Google Podcasts. Try asking Alexa or Siri. Play Sarah's Country on podcast.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
Really pleased we got into this. Thanks for your help, Dave.
It's a good idea, honey. You reckon it'll come out? Cover it and tell compound to leave it 10 minutes, and you'll be fine. Good call, Dave.
Good call on getting those security cameras, Dave.
You caught a new one yet?
Yeah, kind of.
When you've got decisions to make, we'll be there to help you make the right call.
I'd go for those ones, Bob. Yeah, good call.
Did you choose these?
Oh, you know.
For great advice and insurance, talk to FMG.
Let's be honest, everyone's got a great mate called Trev. I even have a favourite uncle called Trev. And you'll notice that there's a man called Fred Dagg, and he had a swagger sons called Trev. Trev is always associated with being an all-round good bugger and a bit of a legend, but Trev is also a computer software here in New Zealand, which is a new farm reporting software, allowing farmers to build a database of operational information in a quick and easy format that only takes less than 10 minutes per week. Can you believe that? The team at Trev have been head down working hard, testing and building an integration with the financial reporting software Figured, and are very excited to be able to share the developments. And our next guest, Scott Townshend, the CEO of Trev, joins us now. Kia ora, Scott. It's a privilege to have you on and talk about this. I absolutely love the dairy farmer to tech entrepreneur journey type stories.
Hey Sarah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a pretty cool learning curve making that change.
Hey, so tell our listeners and viewers just about the background of where you were and that pivotal moment when you started to build what is now known as Trev. Yeah,
so I guess Trev probably came out of a few frustrations around farm data. So in some previous roles on farm and one in particular in a corporate farming business, I was having a bit of a tough time around gathering data, building that data up, making sense of it, and most importantly, doing it all regularly in a timely manner for really quick decision making. I felt there probably wasn't a tool specifically out there for farmers. Nothing that would let me collect my information, about my farm or farms easily, and then spit it back at me, specifically for my farm's day-to-day decision making or weekly decision making. So I wanted something that had real productivity and profitability drivers, and something that let me really easily share information with about my farm's performance with other people. So that might be my farm staff or discussion groups or the board or the bank. So I probably also had a bit of an issue as well around the control of my farm's data. So my information was sort of sitting in a range of different platforms and tools, but it just wasn't mine as such. So I wanted something where I could access my own raw information and be able to calculate from it. So that's sort of what we set out to achieve with Trev. Started with spreadsheets, like I think a lot of people do, but they're not really designed to collect and store and share data. So long story short, we built Trev as this online farm reporting tool for farmers to build their own database of information, and we facilitate it through this weekly reporting process, like you say, less than 10 minutes a week, store it in the cloud, and then let the farmers access, analyse, share the data all within the same platform.
Now, visualizing data is only as good as the data that's being put in. And I mean, that's the one thing with spreadsheets is such manual entry, and it does take, can have, human error there. What are some of those things that you've got that can plug in the data from all the other on-farm tools that you are using?
Yeah, data quality is a big one. So, some of the mechanics that we have in there, data validation, rules in there that mean that, we only accept sensible information. We truth that information against itself. So, if you put in data point A and data point B over here, and if the two don't really make sense, then we want to, let you know about that before you carry on. And we've got a few other bits and pieces in the pipeline around trying to integrate data from different platforms and get Trev and other platforms talking to one another, so that we're all talking from one source of information, and that data is accurate that way.
What would be an example of an integration or a way of things effectively talking to each other and helping out day-to-day running of a farm?
Yeah, I think I always jump to livestock in terms of the example of lining data up across systems. I feel like there's about, you might have livestock numbers in about 5 or 6 different places. So, it might be what's actually on farm, what's in your spreadsheet or your Trev reporting, what's in your livestock genetic database, what's in your accounting software, and what's in your financial records. So, so we think that an integration such as the Trev figured one is a really great way of starting that alignment. So, making sure that the same numbers that people are operating off for on-farm decision making align with what's in your in your accounting software. And then the benefits of that are that you get the right people using the right tools. So the guys on the ground might be using Trev to record livestock movements, that sort of thing. The guys in the office might be logging more into your financial products like Figured or whatever it might be that is the product that suits them. But ultimately, they're all talking about the same numbers.
I mean, any form of decision making comes down to the old adage, what's in it for me? And when it comes to farming, a lot of it is connected to dollars and cents. When you were operating and starting to formulate this as a tangible tool, what were some of those abilities to either save money or work out ways to increase income from being able to see data collectively?
Yeah, so I think time was a real big one. I mean, we were by creating a streamlined reporting process, we just stripped out so much time across the system. So that's the time that a farm manager or a contract milker, share milker might be spending reporting about what's going on a farm. They're the best position to know what's going on. So minimising that time. Maybe there's somebody in office that we're really minimising the time in terms of aggregating that data. And then the time to share it. You can share stuff with a click of a button rather than finding something, curating it into a chart and sharing it with via email or whatever that is. But in terms of some of the dollars and cents savings, I think minimising loss has been a real big one. So being able to put your farm's performance up against some other farms that you might be sharing information with on Trev. So that might be within a farming group or a discussion group or with some mates down the road. Being able to share that information on Trev and see how you're performing against them, and preventing becoming an outlier before it happens. And so that regular flow of weekly information is really critical in doing that.
And that is one thing that is missing from the farming industry is sort of instant feedback and benchmarking, where farmers just want to know if they're sort of on average or above average, really, don't they, at the end of the day? So where Trev can go is very exciting as more and more get on board. Now, I know, Scott, that you're heavily passionate about the agri-tech ITP that the government has formulated and the lack of interoperability, the big word, which basically means telling software to talk to each other, but the people behind it maybe also to talk to each other.
Yeah, that's right. I think everybody's got their bit to play. I think the most important thing is that in 5 years' time or whenever it might be, we end up in a situation where farmers have a suite of tools that they can pick and choose. Not all the tools are suited for every farm, but the situation where, for my farm, I can pick and choose the tools that I want, and I know that these tools are going to talk to one another. So my livestock data here for operational reporting is going to flow in and be the same numbers in my financial software. So that's the key. It's got to have farmer interests at heart.
Absolutely. And we will be talking to a professor in psychology, would you believe it, around this overload of technology on farmers' innate ability to understand nature as they farm. But at the same time, it's the motivations of any use of any service, isn't it? If it improves somebody's life. And so there is no bounds on where technology can go, but understanding adoption is something that's more than just having the latest whiz-bang thing. So how do we increase farmer adoption? Because there's certainly not a lack of amazing tools in the industry.
Yeah, that's right. I think technology is just ingraining itself on farms. So there's a bit of a time element to it. But I think the things that we can do are just breaking down some of the barriers. So things should be fast. Things should be easy. You shouldn't have to have a PhD to drive a tool. You should just be able to pick something up and know how to use it. So I think those are the key things.
And also too, when you're developing as well, it's like speaking a different language both ways, isn't it? From a farmer to a developer and a developer back to a farmer. And I know personally a lot of farmers get very frustrated that the people that have built the tools don't understand how they are used on a day-to-day basis. How have you navigated that with Trev?
Yeah, I guess the previous roles that I've had have really well positioned me for that. I've got a bit of a love for data and like playing around with things, but sort of equally know how it should be used. So yeah, in a bit of a lucky position to be able to speak to developers, but put that into farmers' speak. The main thing is, I think for us, is that we keep it really clean and simple. And any of the complicated stuff, we leave it under the hood. So, farmer has a nice clean interaction with entering data or raw data or viewing data, and all of the sophisticated stuff, whether it's the machine learning or artificial intelligence, whatever. Keep the hard stuff under the hood and just present it back in really meaningful ways for decision making.
And lastly, I know anyone that has that task of sitting in the office of a farming operation will want to know that there's good quality support, only a phone call away should they need it. Otherwise, they won't even bother signing up to a software. Can you assure that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first protocol is our live chat mechanism. That's the most efficient way for us to deliver support. But yeah, absolutely. On tap, on a phone, if you need it. The reason that we go down the intercom live chat track is that it's also a bloody cool tool for us to collect farmer feedback, tag it out, and help us prioritise development. So if we get these cool ideas coming in, lots of farmers want the same thing. It's really easy for us to bump it up our product development priority list.
Awesome. Fantastic. Scott Townshend, the CEO of Trev. I highly suggest you go and have a check out on the website and see what you think. I think it's pretty cool on initial look. So certainly lovely to be able to delve into that more. Now, after this very short break, we're going to learn how a $25 million fund from the government called Future Ready Farms is going to be led by Ballance Agri-Nutrients and will help farmers meet national environmental targets. Mark Wynne from Ballance will join us very shortly on the show.
This is Sarah's Country. Join the conversation. Have thoughts on an interview? Or have you got questions you want answered by a future guest? Let us know. Email sarah@sarahscountry.com.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Well, just before Christmas, a new 5-year partnership that seeks to significantly reduce the food and fibre sector's environmental footprint was announced. The goal is to boost economic growth and sustainability at the same time. The $25 million Future Ready Farms program is led by Ballance Agri-Nutrients with co-investment of more than $10 million from the Ministry for Primary Industries Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund. Joined now by CEO for Ballance, Mark Wynne. How are you today, Mark? Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's an exciting development.
Yes, it is. We're really excited. It's a big program, $25 million. So we've got a lot of work to do to get a good return on that. But $15 million coming in from Ballance, $10 million coming in from the government, and that will allow us to run a very comprehensive program across about 12 key project areas. So, yeah, we're really excited.
So reducing greenhouse gas emissions, agricultural chemical use and nutrients loss into waterways. Why is this important to Ballance?
Well, these are some of the biggest issues that farmers are facing, driven by both consumer expectation offshore as a food consumer and, of course, our community expectations. So farmers are already doing a lot in this space, and we want to empower them with more products, more tools, and more services that will enable them to go faster, go better, and hopefully with less on-farm capital investment, because we'll do it as the collective for the whole industry. It's worth remembering that, over our research shows over 93% of farmers really care about the environment, and well over about 85% are absolutely passionate about the environment. So we believe this Future Ready Farms program is absolutely what farmers need over the coming decade.
Mark, I just want to sort of understand too around how Balance's business model is changing as the demands on farming is changing as well, and future readying the organisation and the cooperative just as much.
Well, absolutely. So this is clearly our external facing program. This is tools, services and products for farmers. We have the same challenges internally. I mean, if you go back to the origin of the fertiliser cooperative industry in New Zealand, it was much more around actually just being able to supply basic nutrients. But I look at our business today, it's almost flipped on its head. Yes, we sell nutrients, but our business is basically an advice business. How do you enable farms to keep productivity and thrive by minimising the inputs? So it's a very, very different model from what it was, say, 20 years ago. And the one big advantage of being a cooperative is because our shareholders, farmer shareholders, own us. We're not under the pressure to keep driving volume. So it is all about optimizing on-farm performance and minimizing that footprint. And that's exactly where this Future Ready Farms program fits in.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what the average Ballance shareholder is asking and demanding of its cooperative nowadays, and what's those key messages coming to you?
Oh, it's certainly around farm system advice and how they can maintain their productivity with a lower inputs, obviously to have a reduced impact on the environment. So we've changed enormously from a sales force, if you want to call it that, to what we call nutrient specialists. We've set up a whole separate team of just over 20 people that do purely farm sustainability advice. So that's everything from nutrient budgets through to farm environment plans and farm mitigations. Our whole product portfolio has changed. And like Scott was saying in your previous interview, Ballance also has been investing tens of millions of dollars in digital tools to enable real-time decision-making, more accurate decision-making, and better coordination across the many data sources that farmers, are in charge of.
Yeah, I mean, duplication in that space is something for another interview, Mark. But in conversations with Minister O'Connor, when he's just about to bring in a nitrogen cap of 190 kilograms of N per hectare, and also at the same time a sweetener of funds to be able to assist one of the many companies that will be affected by this, is it more than just a stick at farmers? Do you believe that the government are actively wanting to find the how to the why?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you come back up to a macro level. New Zealand's economy depends on a thriving agricultural and horticultural business. And what the government is faced with, which is what consumers are faced with as well around the world, is balancing the need for fresh, healthy food, but at the same time protecting this beautiful country that we have. So on the one hand, they're putting a cap on the nitrogen, but our Future Ready Farms program says, how do we optimize inside the rules that either the government sets, community sets, but most importantly, what our global consumers set? And so how can we make food fresh, healthy, way into the future and meet all the obligations and legislation requirements so that we can enjoy Aotearoa? And they sound incompatible, but they're not. They are actually both deliverable.
Let's talk about the 12 projects with the $25 million fund will go to. What are some of those that excite you?
Oh, well, there's lots. All of them. Some are higher risk than others, as you would imagine in a big portfolio of projects. Probably without giving away all of our little secrets, there's a couple that really excite me. So we're working with a technology that's been in New Zealand for a while called Spiky. And this is really identifying urine patches and how can you lock up that nitrogen so it doesn't leach into the water. And we think we've got some pretty clever technology to add into that. So that would be one example, and that will have a massive impact. If we can bring that to reality, that will have an enormous impact on the nitrogen leaching off dairy farms. So that would be one. The second one is really understanding, again, bringing together a collective of partners and knowledge to really understand soil health, because this is the long-term future of growing and farming in New Zealand. And the measurements we have today all over the world actually are still quite crude. And what we want to do is look at how we can measure soil health and then improve it. And if we do that, that will improve obviously crop health, but also animal health. And with improved animal health, there are so many knock-on benefits of less antibiotics, less drenching, less sprays. etc. So the agrochemical usage can be moderated. So those are probably two that really excite me, and one of those will be hopefully early out of the program, and the other one, Spiky's, probably towards the latter end. That's a big task, that one.
Certainly, knowing more about Spiky, that is very exciting. Spiky is a very cool technology, and our listeners and viewers, if you haven't heard of it, Google it, Spiky. It's very, very cool. Goes on behind a tractor. Mark, I'm just sitting here though, and I'm constantly trying to understand the agrochemical companies, the fertilizer companies, and the ability for their existence to continue to sell nutrients. But everything's about less is more, and improving soil quality, soil health, animal health, etc. Do you believe that we can collectively achieve this and leave agendas on the table?
Different agendas will be on the table, but agendas will still be on the table. Again, if you come all the way back up to the high level, we're in a really hungry world. You know, we've got, pick a number, 7.5, 8 billion people. We can feed the equivalent of about 40 million New Zealanders. So we want to be at the premium end of that protein and carbohydrate, fruit, wine sector. So it's, I don't want to be disrespectful to the legislation, but actually the government is only reacting to what consumers are demanding. And so if we go offshore where, 95% of our food goes, and listen to the people that we target, which is the premium end of the market, they are demanding, and they're voting with their food dollar, that we get it right. So, on one hand, we don't have a choice from that point of view. On the other hand, hey, we live in this beautiful country. We have to find the balance between looking after the environment and having a wealthy, productive, healthy food system. And can we? Of course we can. And as long as we're all prepared to moderate our certain areas, but keep driving towards that collective goal, this is absolutely achievable. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be done by tomorrow, but it is achievable, and we will get there.
Mark, it's inspiring that you're in that role with that attitude, and I certainly look forward to continuously following the program, Future Ready Farms, that has the $25 million funding co-investment with MPI released before Christmas, and seeing these programs develop, because of course, as we know, things don't happen overnight, but certainly there is a willingness to work together, and it sounds very, very exciting. So Mark, thank you very much for your time. Now, to close the show, following on talking about a lot of technology in this week's Changemaker, swinging to a point, are robotics in agriculture doing more harm than good? We're going to find out more from Professor in Philosophy, Rob Sparrow from Monash University in Australia, joining us from across the ditch with his thoughts next.
This is Sarah's Country. Join the conversation. Have thoughts on an interview? Or have you got questions you want answered by a future guest? Let us know. Email sarah@sarahscountry.com.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here
is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
Like electric fencing.
Or horse feed.
Or bee suits.
Children's chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this.
But at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
grow, milk, drench,
rear, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Now, most media articles, when it comes to agri-tech and robotics in agriculture, always focus on the gee whiz aspects of the technology. But two Monash University philosophy academics have shone an ethical torch on how their future application could raise some challenges for what it means to farm. As reported in a recent Farmers Weekly, journalist Richard Rennie explored this more with our next guest, Professor in Philosophy, Rob Sparrow. Rob, it's an interesting angle to take, and I would absolutely love what inspired you to go down this track.
I've been working on the ethics of robotics for about 2 decades. I've mostly been writing about military robotics, a little bit on aged care robotics. I've written about sex robots, which everyone wants to hear about. And I was conscious that, agricultural robotics is one of the, next big things in robotics. And obviously Australia, is a agricultural nation. People are looking at these technologies, and I thought it was time to have a good hard think about them.
There is in the International Journal on Advances in Precision Agriculture, Robots in Agriculture, Prospects, Impacts, Ethics and Policy that you've put together with Mark Howard that I have here. And I'll make sure we've got a link in the description below for our viewers and listeners to read in more detail. But when it comes to our relationship with food, nature and farming, it has been, for many that know a farmer or grower, innate to us in our ability to understand our surroundings and ability to do the job as ourselves, but yet we are surrounded by options with technology to utilise it to make life more efficient. Why do you believe that things like that may improve our well-being, our lifestyle, get the job done quicker, could actually be bad for us?
I'm not going to say that they'll always be bad for us. That would be wrong. These things need to be thought about. And in some ways, one of the first things I want to say is, don't believe the hype. You mentioned the gee whiz. The stories are always about the technologies working perfectly. But as your audience knows, technologies don't always work perfectly. Other people have access to them, and if you don't, that might cause problems. So there's more going on here than, perfect robot on perfect farm. But farming's always been technological. You can't be kind of anti-tech and farm. The question is, what is this technology going to do to our relationship with nature, to the economics of farming, and to our understanding of our place in the natural world and our relationship with our food?
Let's talk about the economics on farm, because here in New Zealand at the moment, and I know it will be the same in Australia, with a lot of migrants coming to be able to help us on farm. Now, of course, with COVID, that being a major issue for when it comes to harvest, especially in the horticultural crops, and of course our tractor drivers, etc. It's appealing to look towards technology to help improve on farm.
That depends a bit on whether or not you're someone who's who wants to work on a farm, or someone who wants workers on a farm. So let's be clear that what to one person is a feature, to another person is a bug. And if there's massive job losses in farming and it's not possible for people to work in the rural sector because the place is crowded, they're crowded out by machines, that's not going to look like a blessing to everyone. Obviously, in the current circumstances, people want to harvest their crops. Has to be said that at the moment, robots offer less here than people imagine. Farming's a difficult application for robots, and often, for instance, you need to modify the agricultural facility heavily in order to make the robots work. That favours people who've got lots of money to spend. It favours people who run particularly big farms or agricultural enterprises. So again, might be great for some. It's not going to be great for everyone. And I think people need to be taking that into account when they think about this technology.
So you're saying that the highly capital intensive nature of these robotic systems will lead them to more monoculture, highly intensified farms, because of the fact that robots are limited in their ability to do so, of understanding nature?
Robots work best if you can make the task measurable and repetitive, which is why we've had production line robots for a long time, where you can fence everybody off the production line in the factory and the same part is being moved into the same bin over and over again. One of the reasons why we haven't had robots in agriculture for the most part is because the natural world is kind of dirty and clunky and hard to manipulate. So when people look to put robots in, say, orchards, for instance, they're often putting rails. You know, you want the trees planted at very precise locations. You want standard prunings. You want only the best fruit. So it tends to standardize the environment. That has impacts on the kind of food we're eating, but it also favours people who can make that kind of investment.
Yeah, and also I was just thinking that the increase in food wastage out of the harvest part of the production system purely on that fact as well. But at the same time, there is so much to benefit from, you know, nutrient levels and soil moisture, etc. as well. Did you find a highlight in people's well-beings from utilising technology at all?
Well, again, framing this as about technology versus no technology isn't the right framing, because there's no technology option in agriculture. The question is whether or not farm automation, farm robotics will lead to us having a more secure food supply, cheaper produce, will enable people to keep living on the land and farming. And that's not straightforward because of the a lot of people who are looking at agriculture, particularly internationally at the moment, say we need smaller farms, we need more biodiverse farming, we need shorter supply lines, and robots is all heading in the other direction. It favours large-scale farming, standardised crops, regular production schedules. It's an industrial model of agriculture, and clearly that has been very productive for us, but it has downsides as well, and I'm just trying to make sure that people keep those in mind.
I'm really interested in how you actually came to be in the field of robotics, and there's so much more than agriculture and all the elements around from the ability to use in military through to, as you said, sex robots, etc. What fascinates you when it comes to the philosophy of where the future could go?
In part because I'll be living in the future and my children will be living in the future, and so I care about the future. And one of the things that has happened culturally is people have given up, more or less given up, on the idea that we can shape the future, and we expect our future to be shaped by our technologies. And so if you're interested in shaping that future, shaping technologies is one of the places that you need to be looking. Often conversations about robots are really conversations about what it means to be human. And, conversations about agricultural robots often turn on competing visions for the future of agriculture. There's an industrial model of agriculture, and then there's a, return to a kind of more small-scale biodiverse agriculture. And in part, the debate about robots is about which of those futures we want to bring into existence. The future matters to all of us. If someone tells you their technology is revolutionary, you should think, hang on, do I want a revolution? Is this my revolution? And certainly robots are a technology that people regularly describe as being revolutionary.
It certainly is a fine balance, isn't it? Because of the fact that technology such as social media, if it was put through an ethics committee before it got started, probably would have never got off the ground and had the benefits that it did, regardless of all the dangerous side of it that we're discovering now. So what would a ethics committee around agricultural robots look like that didn't hinder advancements?
Again, I would be reluctant to talk about hindering advancements. The question is, if you want genuine advances in our quality of life, if you want to see a more secure food supply, better food on our plates, which technologies do you want? And just buying robots, out of the box without thinking about them, and without thinking, what will the world be like when these things are being used by your competitors? How will it change what it means to operate a farm? For instance, what will happen when a lot of farm work can be done remotely, for instance? So if you think about, say, remote mining operations, for instance, once you've taken the driver out of the truck, there's no need to have them even in the country. You can have people overseas tele-operating your mining vehicles, and in the future, maybe the tractors will all be run by people overseas. So that world is one that we need to think critically about. Not block advances, but make sure they genuinely are advances.
There's a lot of Irish and UK tractor drivers stuck in Great Britain that usually would be here driving tractors that we happily remotely drive them on our behalf. Professor Rob Sparrow, thank you so much for your insights into that. It's extremely interesting. And as I said, I'll put the link to the paper that Rob and Mark Howard put together on the ethics of robots in agriculture. That's all we've got time for on the Changemaker in our very first episode of the series. And of course, it will be every Wednesday now on Sarah's Country. I hope you are enjoying this new themed format. And of course, as I said, if you do have interest in sending through some stories or potential that you yourself would like to come and join me in the studio here in Canterbury, of course, remotely, please get in touch, sarah@sarahscountry.com. We absolutely love hearing from you, and there is certainly not a shortage of amazing innovations and solutions that we need to shine a light on, and so that's what our job here is to do on the Changemaker series. We'll be back on Monday with our Newsmaker series, which is produced in alliance with the great team at Farmers Weekly, bringing you the latest stories that you need to know from the paper on Monday. And of course, in the meantime, feel free to subscribe to us on podcast. Tell all your friends about it, because this is the one show that is certainly providing a lot of in-depth information on farming, food and fashion here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. In the meantime, ka kite anō, and I will see you again soon.